Ang mga binibenta ko pong pagkain na ulam, adobo, sinigang, kaldereta, pork chop, fried chicken, may mga gulay, pakbet, tsaka chapsoy. Karamihan na kumakain sa akin, nagtatrabaho sa Mapua, mga empleyado. Tapos, estudyante rin ng Mapua, SEUM, Manila High. Ayun po, nakakatulong ang tindahan po namin sa Intramuros, lalo na po ang sana may malaking bagay po sa mga estudyante at mga empleyado sa Intramuros na nagtatrabaho. Kasi pangmasa po ang presyo. 40 years na po ako nakatira sa Intramuros, naranasan na namin yung hirap, baha. Para sa amin, ang Intramuros, malaking bagay kasi dito nabuhay yung mga anak ko, dito ako nagpalaki ng mga anak ko, dito ko kinuha yung pampalaki ng mga anak ko, maaral. Kaya ang Intramuros, malaking bagay sa akin. Dito na rin nag-aaral ng mga anak ko ng high school, elementary sa Quiapo, Mabini, sa high school sa Manila High School, sa Intramuros. Ako po si Edna Apable. Merong isang karinderya sa Intramuros. Ang ginagawa ko po, namamalengke sa madaling araw, nagluluto, nagtitinda. Ang pangarap ko po sa Intramuros, sana huwag kami mawala at habang buhay kami makapaghanap buhay sa Intramuros.
For me, Intramuros is our past, present, and our future. And because of that, it is very important in our lives. We must be involved and engaged in Intramuros, and we, as citizens, must do everything to keep it alive, to keep it vibrant, because it is the archive of our history. It is the archive of who we are as a people. Well, I'm Olivia Limpeao. I'm the President and CEO of Distillery Limtuaco and the 5th generation master blender and distiller of the oldest distillery in the Philippines. So our company was established in 1852, and our founder is Don Bonifacio Limtuaco, who came from China, Fujian, China, and he introduced to the Philippines this product called Shok Hok Tong, which eventually became the generic term for Chinese medicinal wine, Shok Tong. And so we are very much part of the history of the Philippines through our liquor making with 167 years of history and legacy that we have shared with this country. Well, Intramuros is very important because this was really the seat of governmental power and trade, culture, religion, and we're very proud to be part of Intramuros now through our museum. While our role in Intramuros is really to provide another tourist spot, another tourist spot where through our museum, tourists can learn more about our country, about our products, about our industry. And we're very proud to be given that opportunity to participate, in promoting culture through food. Well, I would really love that Intramuros would be teeming with tourists, with young people working in this place, celebrating our history and our culture, and sharing it with the rest of the world. Similar to what other countries are doing. For instance, like in Tallinn, Estonia, where they have a medieval walled city. I wish our Intramuros would be not just like that, but maybe even better, So it would be really a living walled city of the past, the present, and the future.
My memory of Intramuros was always during Holy Week. I think we come here around 4 or 5 a.m. because the Manila Cathedral will be full of people to join together in one community of prayer. And whenever we come to Intramuros, we really appreciate that story of our country, the story of our city, and maybe the stories also of many people who lived here before. This place for us priests is a very special place because this is where all of us could gather as one community, as one church here in Manila. My dream for Intramuros, that it will become a center of faith and even pilgrimage for many people around the world. I am Father Cali Liamado. I am currently the Vice Rector of the Manila Cathedral. By being young as a priest, I think it is my duty now to bring the church and the faith much closer to young people.
I've been a resident of Intramuros for half of my life, and my children has grown to love this place. We are trying to promote Intramuros through our venue because we feel that this is one way of inviting tourists to come and experience Intramuros. This place is actually the ancestral house of my husband. So this is where he grew up. So he's been here for like his entire lifetime. So it really means a lot, not only to him and his family, but to us also. We would like Intramuros to be a premier tourist destination. My name is Cosette Chua. I am the Managing Director of Pavilion de la Castellana. We are working closely with the administrator to further improve what we have. I believe that this is the only historical place that's left in Manila. In my own little way, I would like to think that I can contribute to its historical value.
Intramuros, as like I said, it is the noble and ever-loyal city. Its spirit will not die. This is our history. This is the story of our people. This is where everything started as far as this Manila is concerned. This is the history of our people. Fondest memory, of course, is going to Fort Santiago and learning a little bit of the history of Rizal. And then learning how, well, we were exploited, we were oppressed, but because of the resiliency and strong character of the Filipinos, we were able to survive all of that. I am Mengi Covarrubias. I am under the office of the University President, Dr. Leonora Vasquez de Jesus. At the moment, I am a consultant. I am handling now our tourism and hotel and restaurant management courses. Pamantasan ng Luzon ng Manila was incorporated in 1965. It opened its doors in 1967 to its first batch of students. With PLM alone, this is a lot of history. So what we do now is we try to impress on our students the historical value and the cultural legacy of Intramuros. It is not simply the walls and the cobbled streets. So we try to impress that it's really part of our culture, our history, and our heritage. My role right now, like I said, is to impress the importance of Intramuros, that it is a part of our life, it is the story of our people. Now, coming from that, it can provide you with so many possibilities in terms of employment. You see, if we can improve our community, the shops to be open, restaurants, coffee shop, curio shops, we don't even have to look far. You know, if we're just thinking of employment, we're thinking this is something that we can do for our country. I don't think I have too much time. The near future to me was yesterday. So we hope that most of the original would be restored. I'd like to see more locals traveling here or coming around here, make use of this as their park, as their leisure places. In the meantime, learning a lot about history.
As a child, I would frequent Intramuros because of our educational field trip. We would usually go to the Manila Cathedral. So it's part of my childhood memory. Little did I know that after many years, I would be a resident of Intramuros. The Manila Cathedral started as a small parish church here in the same spot in 1571. When we talk of Manila, especially during the Spanish times, it was Intramuros. And the Manila Cathedral is in the heart of Manila, which is Intramuros, being the first cathedral in the Philippines, the center of Philippine governance. This was also the center of Philippine faith. Religion, especially Christianity, is not just about doctrines. Religion is about relationship. Young people are so engrossed in an activity, especially when they see that what they are doing is something that benefits others. And I think the church provides them with many opportunities for that. I wish that Intramuros to be a place where tourists are enriched when it comes to their discovery of their faith. I am Father Reginald R. Malikdem. I am the rector of the Manila Cathedral since July of 2015. Little did I know that after many years, I would be asked to take care of Mother Church of the Philippines of Intramuros.
Intramuros is very important to us because of the lessons in heritage and history. Siguro, in one line ng objective ng Bahay Chinoy, establish our rightful place in the Philippine sun. Bukas ito sa public noong 1999, inilalarawan nito ang bahagi at ang impact ng mga Chinese Filipinos in all aspects of Philippine life. I wish that the Bahay Chinoy can be recognized in the whole Intramuros and the whole Philippine society. I wish all the visitors, the audience, regardless of race, regardless of origin, regardless of your religion, can be recognized as part of this nation and as part of this nation building and the history of the Philippines. Ako po si Teresita Angsi, founding president ng Kaisa para sa Kaunlaran at ngayon ay executive trustee ng Kaisa Heritage Foundation na nagmamanage sa Bahay Chinoy, Museum of the Chinese in Philippine Life.
So naging special sa akin yung Intramuros dahil dito rin ako nakatira, so dito na rin ako kumukuha para sa hanap buhay namin. And then ang Intramuros din para sa akin is parang isang tahanan na rin para sa akin. So ang role ko dito sa Intramuros ay parang tayo naging nag-a-attract or nagpapa-attract sa mga turista dito sa loob ng Intramuros para kahit pa paano makita rin nila yung kagandahan ng Intramuros. Ako nga pala si Valentino Mejia, isang e-trike driver dito sa Intramuros. So ang nakikita ko sa future ng Intramuros is lalawak pa yung ating turismo dito sa loob ng Intramuros, and then talagang makikilala ang Intramuros sa buong Pilipinas, hindi lang sa buong Pilipinas, sa buong mundo.
Intramuros for me is a place that tells you the story of Manila, the city that I was born in, the city that I worked in, and the city that I live in and will probably live in for the next years. My life with Intramuros began in 1999 when I started volunteering for a museum, Bahay Chinoy. And it was from there that I started doing cultural work, and eventually which led to us establishing our tour outfit in 2005. Intramuros is a place of a lot of personal memories for me because I've been coming here since I was a little boy. I remember my first trip here was in the 1980s when we had a school trip at San Agustin Museum. And I distinctly remember getting freaked out because I went to a crypt with lots of dead people, and which nobody really explained what they were. So that fascination with Manila's history, with my personal family's history, began here in Intramuros. I think what we do here in Intramuros introduces people to our city. And by introducing Intramuros to our visitors, we tell them the story and we make them understand the city, my city, Manila, what it was, how it is today, and what it will be in the future. My hopes for Intramuros is to be a place that is anchored in its past, but at the same time, it's a place that can have new ideas for the future. No? A place that will inspire people, a place that will create good memories, and a place that will make you feel good about being a Manileño. I'm Ivan Mandy. I'm a cultural guide from Old Manila Walks, and we have been doing historical walks around the old city since 2005. I see myself as a cultural worker and a storyteller. And I tell basically the story of our city. And the story of Manila begins here in Intramuros.
Ang Intramuros, isa sa pinakamahalagang lugar dito sa buong Pilipinas. Ito ay isa sa historical place. Ay naitutulong ng isang kutsero ay may turo sa mga bawat namamasyal kung anong mahalagang lugar dito sa Intramuros. Mga rule ng mga kutsero ay kailangan panatili, malinis ang lugar, tapos sa mag-uniforme at sundin ang mga tuntunin ng Intramuros. Dito sa Intramuros, sana isang araw o bawat isang linggo, bigyan nila ng mga libre na mga lugar para lalong pasyalan ng mga mamamasyal dito sa Intramuros. Yung iba kasi namamasyal dito, hindi nakakapasok sa mga lugar-lugar kasi may mga bayan. Ako po pala si Romeo M. Javier bilang isang kotsero at bilang isang tour guide sa Intramuros. Dito rin ako nabubuhay at nabubuhay ang aming pamilya. Kaya malaking tulong ang Intramuros sa buhay ng bawat isang kotsero dito.
Culture is about what human beings have been able to develop for themselves, no? In terms of artifacts, in terms of knowledge, in terms of traditions and customs. As an educational institution, knowledge is something that we deal with, and of course, if that's devoid of context in terms of the traditions of the people, of the needs of the people, in terms of the artifacts that we find around us, including technological artifacts, then it will be empty. So education must be infused with a lot of culture. So that's how I would tie them all together.
Intramuros is valuable not only for me but for the whole of the Bureau of Treasury because it's a convergence between the distant past and the present. Over the short span that I have served as the treasurer, I have seen how, through the efforts of the Intramuros Administration, places like Fort Santiago, the surrounding walls and gardens, the old churches, and the plazas have become vibrant attractions, showcasing the old alongside the new. So indeed, Intramuros is on the rise. I'm Rosalia De Leon. I'm currently the Treasurer of the Philippines and I've been working here in Intramuros since 2013. Well, personally, Intramuros is important again to me because I find solace after hard day's work. But remembering my childhood, our family, we would always hear masses in the Manila Cathedral, particularly during Easter Sundays. No? And just the same, there are also times when here in the Treasury, when our jobs will be very demanding, but as we see the surroundings of Intramuros, some sort of takes away, all this stress and reminds us of how lucky we are to be in this place surrounded by the history of the Philippines around us. I hope that this treasure of ours could be preserved for the generations to come. I hope that we would not be detached so we could reach out to more people and instill in them a deep sense of our history, the richness of our culture, and a deep sense of the very rich heritage that we have inherited from our forefathers.
Eskwela Talyer, ito yung nagbigay sa akin ng pangalawang pagkakataon na ayusin lahat. Tinutulungan kami para ma-develop yung mga skills namin para magkaroon kami ng kakayahan na gumawa ng sarili rin naming pagkakakitaan. Ang natapos ko dito ay carpentry and woodworks tsaka painting and finishing. Ako si Romel Rivera. Graduate ako ng Eskwela Talier ng Batch 7. Ma-improve siguro yung pakikipag-connecta ng mismong Intramuros Administration sa community, yung mas mas mapatibay pa. Pagdadagdag pa sa mga pwedeng magamit na parte ng Intramuros. Yung trabaho ng mama ko kasi dito sa San Agustin Church, parish coordinator siya, kaya ano pa lang
Right, so it's already 3 o'clock, so we shall start. Thank you everyone for coming to this 57th episode of the Intramuros Learning Sessions. So this is already the 57th episode. And if you've missed our previous episodes, feel free to go to our YouTube channel. So we've already established a lot of episodes lately. And in this episode, as usual, presented to you by the Intramuros Administration, we are going to have a talk on the churches of Intramuros. And for this talk, we're going to have a very special guest who is also the in-house architect of the San Agustin Museum inside Intramuros as well. But before we start, I'd like to call on the director of the San Agustin Museum, Father Ricky Villar, for a warm message for you all. Father? Hi, Father.
Hello, good afternoon. Okay lang po ba ang aking sound?
Yes po.
Okay. Anyway, I was really surprised na ako pala magbibigay ng ng opening remarks na to. Anyway, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ang aming in-house architect, na si Architect Roy, will be presenting to us this afternoon the metrics of the a talk entitled Metrics, Architecture in the Environment of the Modern Churches in Intramuros. And actually, even I myself, hindi ko po alam kung ano ipipresent ni Architect Roy dito sa ating talk na to dahil ito daw po ay punong-puno ng sorpresa para sa ating lahat. And mostly this talk revolves on presentation of the photographic documents of different churches and chapels of the different religious here in Intramuros from the moment of its foundation in 1571 up to pre-war. And most of the photos that he will present to us is based on the archival research. Galing po sa archives ng IA, some from Intramuros, from San Agustin, and others from private collectors. Sana po sa hapong ito, marami po tayong malaman, hindi lamang tungkol sa 7 churches dito sa Intramuros before, kundi pati na rin po yung mga chapels ng iba't ibang religious congregation na meron ditong mother house sa Intramuros hanggang bago mag-World War II. So, ayun po. Yun lang po ang aking short introduction to the talks, to the topic. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Reverend Father Ricky Villar, for that warm message to open this webinar. Now, before we start, I'd like to remind everyone of the house rules. So if you are following, viewing via Zoom, there's a chat button and a Q&A button below the screen. Feel free to raise your questions below anytime. So feel free to just raise your questions. And then later, I can read these questions out loud during the open forum for the speaker to respond to on air. If you are viewing via Facebook, you can also raise your questions in the comment section below. Take note that only those who have registered on Zoom will be eligible to get a certificate. And a certificate will be given to you after you have filled out a feedback form. And note that this webinar is recorded.
Recording in progress.
Right. Now, to introduce our speaker for today, we have Roy de Guzman. So this is the second time that we're having him in the Intramuros Learning Sessions. So previously he talked about the retablos of the San Agustin Church, and now he is expanding further his discussion on the ecclesiastical heritage of Intramuros. So we have Roy. So Roy is a Filipino liturgical architect and cultural worker. He is at present the in-house architect of the San Agustin Church Museum in Intramuros, Manila, as well as a consulting architect for the Order of the First Minor in the province of the San Pedro Bautista, as well as the proprietor of the RDG Ecclesiastical Architecture. As a practicing architect, he is licensed in the Philippines and was honored as an outstanding young architect of the year in professional practice during the 43rd United Architects of the Philippines National Convention in 2017. And as an educator, he was honored as the National University Teaching Excellency Awardee in 2017. Architect de Guzman has a BS in Architecture from the Far Eastern University, and he is also a member of the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art in the New York Central Chapter. Without further ado, I'd like to call on our speaker for today, Architect Roy. Ready po when you are.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. So again, welcome po for our Intramuros Learning Session. This is my second time na po para i-present yung ating data for our Intramuros churches. So for a while lang po, i-screen ko lang po yung aking lecture. Okay, so this is my second time again. I expanded our data since Intramuros Administration, especially Attorney Asido, Rancho, Arcilla, and Architect Tibayan, very supportive sila about sa ating studies po. So in this opportunity na rin po, nag-effort na rin po ako para gawin ito. And then one thing in our lecture today is we will show some photographs na ngayon pa lang po makikita, which is, this is a collection of the Intramuros Administration na at least first time natin mapapakita in public, in social media, or in in online platform po. Never, iba pong photographs dito, never pa pong nakikita po. So this is our title, Matriz, the architecture and environ of our mother churches inside or in Intramuros. So today in June 11. So also the Feast of the Sacred Heart, ngayon din natin sineselebrate. Sumakto lang din kasi nung nakaraang lecture series po natin, we we have a lecture na a celebration naman is the Feast of the Our Lady of la Consolacion, which is, ang topic namin noon is the retablos inside the San Agustin Church with Father Ricky Villar. So let's start na po. Shameless plugging, if you want to follow our works in my company, so sa Instagram po ng aking office po, so yan po, follow lang nyo po is the RDG Ecclesiastical Architecture. Okay, so ano nga ba ang Intramuros ngayon, after the war, and then Intramuros in memories? Ano kaya ba ang mga nangyayari? As of now, we're very optimistic naman in terms of our pilgrimage, our tourism here in country. Medyo meron naman tayong hope after the war na nangyari. One thing is na-revive naman ng Manila Cathedral, nakasurvive ang San Agustin Church. Some of the buildings inside Intramuros is na-remain pa rin. So presently, there's an interesting increase na bakit in our online platform or in social media, bakit may mga tanong na kailangan ba ibalik talaga ang 7 churches here in Intramuros? Kasi may demand eh. Nagtatanong yung mga tao or minsan hinahanap-hanap natin, nasabi daw natin is mas maganda ang Intramuros before kung hindi siya nasira. Sa sobrang daming data na lumalabas online, ayan tuloy, na-excite tayo na makita sana natin sila ulit. But ang tanong is, pwede pa ba silang ibalik? Yun ang first big question. So later, baka maka-formulate tayo kung anong madidiscuss natin dito. So, research objectives, ito lang po tayo. Meron lang po tayong sometime scope and delimitation. First is, we will just discuss the artistic analysis of each churches or architectural elements. Then number 2 is the historical architectural evaluation and morphology analysis of the mother churches. So, mapapag-aralan lang natin or we will discuss the parts of the church based on the morphology and stylosis method. Ibig sabihin nun, galing sa mga photographs, magpapuzzle lang tayo, and then we will just interpret it. Of course, yung interpretation na yon mas effective or mas solid kung meron tayong supporting written documents or accounts. And then number 3, demolition, renovation during the war, part of the scope. And then delimitation. We don't have any discussion about the materials of construction, origin of the suppliers and resources purchased, kung saan na ba nanggaling yung mga bagay na inside Intramuros. Example, we will not discuss anymore na yung itong mga santo na to, pinagawa ba yan dito, pinurchase ba siya sa Spain, or dala ba siya during the Gallian trade. Number 5, we don't have any discussion about the controversies or any news event about the orders and also the orders departure from Intramuros. We cannot discuss that. Masyadong mahabang usapan. And last one, no discussion about rebuilding the churches. And then research method, we have archiving photographs and literature data. And then analytical framework, which is I said earlier, is the anastylosis and comparative method in terms of architectural elements. Disclaimer, more on architectural po ang discussion natin. Baka later on, for example po in our previous topic, medyo sabi daw, masyado daw technical ang lecture ko. Again, here we go again. Baka lang po sa iba po sa ating audience, this is very technical siguro in terms of architectural methodology. So, this is the Intramuros site before. So, kung nakikita nyo po, which is where merong open spaces, yun po ang areas na meron tayong mga churches. Ilang kaya yung mga churches na makikita natin dito? Isa-isahin po natin to Another photograph, this is 2021 based on the Google Maps. Kanina ko lang po ito din-download. Currently, this is the map of Intramuros. So, in terms of urban planning, talagang congested na po ang Metro Manila. Within the walls pa lang po. But imagine before during the Spanish period, itong area na to, no? Lahat ito, moat or sometimes water feature na. So, talagang fortress type or serado talaga ang ating Intramuros. Now, why in Intramuros? Since this is the center of the government of our Spanish colony period, nandito na lahat ang access na rin nila. So, since the central government, the civil government, so pati yung ating archbishop, our ecclesiastical government here in the Philippines, dito na rin nilagay strategically para lang centralized na for in terms of economics, also for accessibility. So this is a photograph from the British Library. Kung ma-download nyo to in Wikipedia, makikita dito na naka-isometric view yung mga chapels natin. Well-detailed images ito. So this is owned by King George III. I'm not sure kung siya nga talaga exactly may-ari nito. But yun yan, nagkaroon lang po ako ng technical problems last minute. I-detail ko sana sa inyo yung itsura ng mga simbahan neto during the 18th century po. So, hindi ko mabibigay exact year kung kailan po exactly ito. Pero, iba, yung sinasabi ko lang po din sa photograph na to is, iba rin po ang itsura niya nung 18th century or earlier to 17th century po. And then from the National Archives and Records Administration, so a photograph from probably during the American period. Not sure kung 1930s to kasi nakalagay doon sa record is during the insular government. And makikita nyo naman dito, Philippine Islands pa ang ginagamit na term. So American period na po to. So another one photograph. Makikita po natin dito is the area or the areas of the religious order or areas ng mga na-occupy ng mga simbahan. In this photograph po, we have the Dominicans from the left. Gawin po natin clockwise na lang po pala. So from clockwise, from the 12 o'clock, IAS Caridad or the IAS de Caridad, which is now the Daughters of Charity. Nandun po ang San Juan de Dios Hospital. And then after the San Juan de Dios Hospital is the area or lot area of the Franciscan Friars or the Order of Friar Minor. So, isang block din sila. So, more than 2 streets ang minsan na na-occupy nila. At the, sabihin natin, 2 o'clock, this is the area of the Capuchin Fathers. Recollects Fathers, the Augustinian Recollects. And then, meron lang natirang lupa dito, which is very small, is the Capuchin Friars. Before the expulsion of the Jesuit, kanila tong area na to. So, this is the Jesuit before. But since na-expel sila during the 17th century, ang na-retain lang doon is the Billetero de la Campania or the Religious of Virgin Mary or the local founded community for nuns or sisters nung unang panahon by Mother Ignacia del Espiritu Santo. Then another compound is the San Agustin Church or the Padres Agustinos. And then after the Padres Agustinos is the Jesuitas. Nalakutawan ko ang Jesuitas. Another compound for the IAS Caridad or for the Daughters of Charity, which is the Santa Isabel College, nung nasa loob pa sila ng Intramuros. And then adjacent part of this is the Arzobispado. And then expand lang natin lot area natin. This is the lot area for the Manila Cathedral. And then after this site, we have the Arzobispado, Jesuitas, we have the Monas Clarisas, or the Monasterio de Santa Clara, kung saan tayo nag-offer ng itlog. And then we have the Dominican compound. Ganito kalaki yata yung area nila eh. So we have Santo Tomas, Santo Domingo, and then Letran. Dito pa lang kaya, pwede na ba natin i-conclude ang may pinakamalaking area within the Intramuros is the Dominican? We don't know po. I cannot conclude this. Then, we have the Santa Rosa and then Santa Catalina. So, ano po yung natitira sa lot area natin? Meron pa tayong malaking ground area dito which is unknown or hindi ko masabi na hindi siya unknown but malaking part of this is a residential area pa rin po. So, hindi within the walls na occupy na po ng religious order yung kanilang area. And the other side of this, ibahin ko lang po yung color. So, possibly, ito po ang area ng government or the royal institutions. So, the Fort Santiago, the Palacio del Gobernador, the Aduana, the Ayuntamiento. So, yan. So, again, kung paano natin ito i-conclude, we cannot conclude everything the data about here, pero visually, masasabi natin sinong pinakamalaki, sinong pinakamaliit, at sinong pinakamaraming na-occupy within Intramuros. So, in this photograph is from the National Archives Records Administration during the insular government of the Philippines. And then, kung makikita nyo naman dito, ito na po yung port area na occupy na po siya nung panahon na to. So, yan. So, this is just the start of our site planning. So, in architecture, lagi po namin tinitignan agad is the site planning. So, paano naman in terms of orientation, in this discussion po, na-notice po natin, lahat halos ng simbahan in Intramuros is oriented to the west. So, we have the San Francisco, Lourdes, and then the Recoletos. Sa ibang site kaya, tingnan natin. In this photograph naman, oriented to the north naman si Manila Cathedral. Si Santo Domingo naman is oriented to the south. Si San Agustin naman is oriented to the north. So, north, north, south. Question, meron ba tong any implication in terms of liturgical orientation in terms of church architecture? Well, some discussion from the early Christian period to the Romanesque period until lately, meron pa rin influence to the Renaissance period. Dapat daw ang orientation ng church is oriented to the east. But in this case, it's already 15th century here in the Orient. So mukhang hindi na rin po ata nasusunod yung requirements ng unang panahon. Mukha lang po, I'm not again conclude everything. Another one is photograph sa makikita natin dito. Ano bang meron dito? San Juan de Dios na katapat lang niya ang post office, the Manila City Hall, and then anything the Burnham plan, ang nakaplano. Then the Dominican compound, again, silang pinakamalaki within the walls. And then, not sure kung this time na ba may mga chozas na or na meron ng mga informal settlers within this area. Hindi ko pa rin po makonclude, but based on the photograph, mukhang yun ang sinasabi nila. Okay, who are the early builders and missionaries inside the Intramuros? So, papakilala mo natin, paano muna sila natayo? Bakit? Agad-agad ba natayo ba sila? Pagdating ba sa architecture, pare-pares din ba sila? Pagdating ba sa charism, pare-pares din ba sila? So, dito natin makikita yon. First is the Augustinian arrived here in the Philippines in 1565. Mission areas of the Augustinian friars is within the Ilocos region, within the Central Luzon, which is Pampanga, Bulacan, Manila, Malate area, hanggang Parañaque, Pasig, up to the Batangas province, Panay Island, and Cebu Islands. Yun ang mga na-occupy ng Augustinian friars. Kung we can conclude this, pwede din natin daw sila i-match daw sa Philippine flag. There are 8 rays of the Philippine flag. Nandun din ang mga Augustinians. So, in the center part of this photograph, we have the emblem of the burning heart or the flaming heart of St. Augustine with the book and cincture. This is from the Betis Church, Pampanga. And then, ayan, kung makikita nyo ba, ano ba itsura ng mga Agustinian friars, kasama namin si Father Urdaneta, which is Father Ricky Villar, our museum director of San Agustin Church. Naka-black habit sila with a cincture. Yung kanilang habit or uniform. Next na dumating sa Philippines are the religious of the Order of Friar Minors or the Franciscan in 1578. So this is the Franciscan friars. This is my my friends, Father Adam, Father Lloyd, Father Phoebe and Angel. That time, 2011 yata to, yung photograph na to, in the Liliw Novitiate. That time, ano pa sila dyan? Post-novitiate pa sila, hindi pa sila pare. So, mission areas of the Franciscan, southern parts of Bulacan, Manila, which is Del Monte, Quezon City, ibig sabihin, Cubao, Paco, Santa Ana, Laguna, Rizal, Quezon, or Tayabas, Camarines Norte, up to the Bicol region. So, some photographic typo error lang po. Kung makikita natin kanina, mula dito, papunta dito, ang areas ng mga Franciscan. Next, na dumating sa Philippines, the Society of Jesus in 1581, missions is in Cavite area, going to the Leyte, Bohol, and majority parts of Mindanao, which is going to the Zamboanga Peninsula. Yan ang mga areas of the Society of Jesus. But, yun lang later we will discuss also, hapyaw lang naman, about the expulsion of the Jesuits here in the Philippines. Then, ayun na. 1581, so nagkaroon tayo ng Jesuit community, but in 1773, which is suppressed the Society of Jesus worldwide. So, medyo nag-stop muna yung mission ng mga Jesuita dito sa Pilipinas. Actually, not only in the Philippines, but some parts or some colonies of Spain and Portugal, hindi na po pinayagan ang mga Society of Jesus because of Clement XIV. Next dumating sa Philippines in 1587 are the Dominican Friars, which is yung mga pari po natin sa UST. Kanina, mga Jesuitas, mga pare sa Ateneo, ngayon naman mga pare sa UST and Latran. So the Dominican or the Order of Preachers, which is in 1587, majority parts na occupy nila is going to the northern zone of the Philippines hanggang Batanes Group of Islands, Pangasinan, and then some parts of Manila and Quirino Province. So that's my friend, Brother Joseph Conrad Salenga. Ngayon, ano na siya? Benedictine na po, lumipat na po siya. Another one, the Recoletos in 1606, almost 15. I'm not sure kung 15 years or 14 years. After the foundation of the Recollets in Spain, nagkaroon po agad ng mission dito sa Philippines. So, another royal granted sila ng hari. So, pinagkakatiwalaan sila ng hari. So, mission sila in Palawan area, Mindoro, some parts of Zambales, and then Cavite also. And then, mga natitira sa Negros and Bohol. Actually, nung nagkaroon ng expulsion of the Jesuits, ang mga nag-take over ng area nila is mga Recoletos. Example, in Bohol, Jesuits po talaga nauna doon. But nung expulsion again, Recoletos na po yung nag-take over sa kanila. Meanwhile, in Samar and Leyte, mga Franciscan naman po ang nag-take over sa mga Jesuit churches. So that's my friend, Architect Enrico. Architect po siya, pero nag-praile po, magpapari na po siya. Nanonood po siya yata ngayon. Another one, the Capuchins or the Capuchinos or the Friar Minors Capuchin, one of the first order of the Franciscan order. Late na po sila dumating dito sa Philippines in 1886. And that's why wala pong masyadong naging mission or na-establish na simbahan ang mga Capuchinos. Pero ang swerte nila is nakapasok pa sila sa loob ng Intramuros. So let's give an example. The Benedictines, the Padres Paulus or the Vincentians, and then the other religious order na late na dumating nung panahon na to, hindi na po sila nakapag-occupy within the walls. Or some of them is nag-occupy na lang within Ermita or Malate area. So let's start within the establishment of the churches in Intramuros. So chronologically, in 1571, our founder Legazpi and then the Augustinians, they started the Manila Cathedral and San Agustin Church. In 1578, dumating na yung Franciscan, Dominican, Recollets, Jesuits, and Capuchins. So, just quoted, Manila is the city of the churches. The exact number of these is impossible to learn. So, nung documentation pa lang of, dito is ang dami ng ma-occupy na data. Kung hindi nasira or hindi nagkaroon ng gera, sa tingin nyo po ba may ganito kaya tayong ine-expect na session or learning session here in Intramuros? So one of this big question is, buti na lang may ganito tayo. Thank you to the Intramuros Administration. So let's start within the Mother Church by the secular fathers. Hindi ko na po masyado na-discuss ang mga secular fathers kasi madalas na pagdating ng mga friars, yung mga diocesan or the secular fathers is sumasabay lang po sa kanila. And then this is the seat of the Archbishop of Manila, the Mother Church of the Philippines, in front of Plaza Mayor, Square of Manila. Also the palace or the Palacio del Gobernador, and also adjacent part of this is the Ayuntamiento or the central government of the Philippines. So another date of this is Legazpi in his role, Conquistador, appointed a parcel for the land for the new settlements for the patronage of the Immaculada Concepcion. In 1571, nipahat pa po siya. Until in 1879, na-rebuilt na po ang ating Manila Cathedral into a neo-Romanesque style. So this is the interior of the Manila Cathedral. In 1958, retained the exterior look. And then Byzantine theme daw yung kanyang terminologies na ginamit sa kanya. Then it features with the stained glass windows, mosaic, and artworks by the Filipino and Italian artists. But syempre, in 1981, na-elevate na po siya as a minor basilica. Okay, what first feature natin is Father Ricky, baka pagalitan mo ako ha. Pinag-uusapan namin to ni Father Ricky. Itong grillworks na po to, makikita nyo po ito ngayon sa San Agustin Church. Now, pagdating naman sa architectural element, makikita nyo po dito is meron pa po siyang ambulatory within the sanctuary of this structure. So this is one of the oldest photograph daw ng Manila Cathedral before. If we observe the architectural element of this, kamukhang-kamukha po siya ng LGSO. So LGSO, which is the mother house of the Society of Jesus or the Jesuitas in in Rome. So this is also the prototype Baroque church ni Giacomo Baruzzi de Vignola and Giacomo della Porta. So this is the mother church of all Baroque. Ito yung prototype kasi kung makikita nyo pa po, yung elements of this structure, very Renaissance pa. Pero since this is the prototype, nagkaroon na po siya ng scroll. So bakit nga po nagkaroon ng Baroque? Because of the reflection of the counter-reformation and reformation during of this age. So may problema po ang simbahan yan because of, yun nga, mga protestante, nagkakaroon ng problema sa loob mismo ng simbahan, which is popularly known as the Reformation, Counter-Reformation in Europe. So, another photographs of this, kitang-kita natin, yung kanong dome is medyo naranja. So, melon type dome pa siya. And then, dito yung facade dito is, yun nga, kamukha pa ng LGSO, pero dito is a neo-Romanesque architecture na. So, it's a three-tier structure with the transept sa kanyang side. Kung nakikita nyo sa photograph dito, wala na po yung Palacio del Gobernador dito. And then, if you notice also, separate pa po ang bell tower natin na naka-8 pa po yung kanyang shape. And then, yung kanyang clerestory windows is obvious, iba pa po na. Hindi pa po siya masonry. And na medyo naranja, dome. Kung makikita nyo rin sa ating wheel window is an image of the Immaculate Conception. So bakit siya naging Romanesque or Neo-Romanesque? Neo-Romanesque is a multi-tiered structure na merong voussoir, so repeated arches with a center trumoy and a tympanum inside the arch yun ang kanyang feature as a Romanesque architecture. So, yun sinasabi namin kanina, series of voussoirs or repetition, arches, and then a tympanum, tapos post and lintel, and then voussoirs sa kanyang gitna. So, it's a double door po siya. Another view of this. And then, ito na yung medyo popular na po inside the Intramuros photographs. Medyo kumakalat naman po in online. And then, in this view, obvious na obvious po, kitang-kita natin ang Santo Domingo Church. Other view of the Plaza Roma. And then, the cathedral or the principal church of the diocese housing the cathedral or the bishop's throne. So, ganyan po ang itsura inside of the Manila Cathedral. So it's the quadruple accouplement. Ibig sabihin nito, 4 na poste na pinagsama-sama po ang kanyang poste noong unang panahon po. Hindi po siya katulad ngayon na dual accouplement or twin accouplement, but dito is a quadruple accouplement. And then meron po siyang ambulatory sa likod. Wala po yung baldacchino, but at least the Blessed Sacrament yung na kanyang baldacchino. And then some photographs in the National Congress. And then the side aisle of the church. No, kitang-kita natin na iikot tayo doon sa loob. So it's quadruple vaulted ceiling, yung kanyang kanyang ceiling, then yung kanyang introdos, medyo repetitions pa. And then ito yung sasabi kong quadruple. And then a small retablo. Adjacent of this is the Arzobispado de Manila. So this is the Archbishop Audience Hall. And then, ito na po yung mga sinasabi kong first time lang po natin makikita in the online. So this is the Archbishop Palace facade. And then this is the chapel of the Archbishop inside Intramuros. So it's a Rococo style architecture. Disclaimer lang po, medyo malabo, but sa photograph po sa gitna is the image of the Miraculous Medal. And then meron pa po siyang curved arches dito. So, yan po yung retablo po ng Arzobispado inside Intramuros. So, bahala na po kayo, screenshot nyo na po, pero lalabas po yan soon sa internet. Next, the oldest and surviving or the survivor inside the Intramuros is the San Agustin Church or the Iglesia de San Pablo. So this is the next church, one of the 12th century, seen in the city rise and fall of it, while remaining standing. So, history of the church, ito na po yung kanyang chronology. Medyo fast forward ko na, but currently, it's a popular, famous wedding venue pa rin hanggang ngayon. And then, kung hindi po nagkaroon ng pandemic, according to Father Ricky, ang reserba po talaga ng kasal po daw hanggang ngayon, nung tinanong ko siya noong 2018, ang reserba na ng 2018 hanggang 2021 na po ang nakapila sa kasal noon. So, fast forward. So, before, kung nakita nyo po sa Twin Tower structure, balik ko lang po dalawa pa po siya, but because of the earthquake in 1886, isa na lang po yung kanyang bell tower. 1880 pala po na nakalagay dito. And then yung Battle of Manila in 1945, ito lang po ang nakatira or ang natirang buhay. Miraculously, bakit siya nabuhay? Well, some scientific answers, kasi daw iniwasan daw ng mga Amerikano sa pagbobomba. And then, masyado pang mahabang discussion and debate paano nakasurvive ang San Agustin Church. But a very simple answer lang naman. Nakasurvive ang San Agustin kasi yun ang gusto ni Lord. Yun lang naman. But again, in this photograph, kung nakikita nyo po, may linya po ng kuryente, which is a Tranvia system. And then colorized pa po yung kanyang photographs. And then this is another Ongping collections pa po. Kitang-kita pa po yung back part of the church, which is this one. Which is ang question namin ni Father Ricky. In this view, ito po yung view from NCCA building ngayon. Ang tanong namin doon, ano bang building na mataas within the NCCA building noong unang panahon? Probably, meron silang inakyatan na residential house, tapos pinicturean na lang nila yung back part ng monastery ng Intramuros. So another photograph inside of the Ongping collection of the Intramuros Administration. Ayan, kitang-kita na po natin. As of now, ang floor area na po ng simbahan natin ay ganyan na po. Ganyan na po kataas. Bumababa na po tayo ngayon sa simbahan natin. And then one na nagulat kami is, hindi namin sure pero ako pinaglalaban ko, in this layout of floor, sabi ko, this is a wooden floor before. Naka-wooden floor po ang Intramuros or ang San Agustin Church noong unang panahon. But again, to conclude everything in this photograph, I need accounts, I need data pa po para lang makonclude natin dito. Again, the Ongping collection po pala is 1911 po sila pinicturan po. 1911. Next, the twin churches, the San Francisco Church near in the eastern walls of Intramuros. This is a compound of Franciscan order. This is the iglesia dedicated to the Iglesia Nuestra Señora de los Ángeles y Padre Serafico San Francisco de Asís. So, memorable landmark. And then, the Church of Four Masses, frequently tourists in the 20th century, housed inside the Franciscan Church, and the image of the Immaculate Conception po, which is celebrated in the December. So, ito na po yung kanyang full photograph. So, obvious po, facade pa lang po niya, ang dami ng intricate, ang dami na pong details. So, facade pa lang retablo na agad. Also, siya lang po yung building na wala pong separate na bell tower. So, sa harapan po na is the statue of the saints. We have the image of the Our Lady of the Angels. Currently po, yung imahe na po niyan, nandun po siya sa Santa Ana, Manila. And then the image of Saint Anthony de Padua, which is a celebration on Sunday, kanya na pong feast day, nasa Forbes Park, Makati naman po yan. So, main altar's native workmanship and then rich in details and sanctuary. So, another photograph. Kung makikita nyo po dito, hindi pa po nare-renovate ang image or the facade of the VOT or yung kanyang kambala simbahan na katulad na nasa Bustillos or Sampaloc, Manila. Another feature in this photograph po is meron po tayong something unique dito. In this photograph po, yan po yung Via Crucis or the Way of the Cross na pinopromote ng mga Franciscan. Ito, may sample po dito. Some elements or kung we have na mako-compare po sa panahon natin ngayon, ang meron po neto is may Kawayan Church in Bulacan, which is San Francisco Church din po ang kanyang titular patron. Parehas po silang may ganyan pong element architecturally sa labas po ng kanyang patio. Malabo lang din po yung photograph, but doon po sa detailed photograph po, naka-elevate po ng 2 steps yung exterior part po ng simbahan na to. In this photograph din po, mukhang ganun din po yata yung nangyari. Yung nasa left po. So, mataas po yung lot area ng area na po ng simbahan na to. So, ito po yung kanyang facade. Very intricate, facade pa lang, mukha na siyang retablo. And then, meron pa po ako statistics dito. Si San Francisco Church po ang pinaka-intricate po sa kanilang lahat. So, in Photographs of National Archives, this is from John Tewell. Ito po yung kanyang other side po niya. Pero hindi po siya naka-medya naranja or naka, quatro aguas lang po yung kanyang dome. And then during the inauguration of the image of Saint Anthony de Padua, 1930s, and then photographs of the Franciscan friars inside the friary. Something unique in this feature is yung kanyang tabla. Kung makikita nyo kung gaano kalalapad nung unang panahon. So yan. So may ganyan pa bang kalalaking kahoy ngayon? Yun ang question ngayon eh. Next, some photographs of this is at the center. Siyempre yung retablo mayor niya. It's a multi-tiered structure. And then kung makikita nyo ito, multi-tiered. So 1, 2, 3. Pwede natin 4. 4 siyang level. Dito kitang-kita yung kanyang pulpit na merong brass or a metal craft na kanyang poste. And then in the left side photograph, mukhang wooden floor yung kanyang nave flooring. And then another one na ngayon lang palang po lalabas sa ating online session is the retablo or the Marian Chapel or the image of the Immaculada Conception. Sa retablo po niya is nandoon po yung Santo Entierro po dito. I'm not sure kung saan po nila nilalabas yan. But since merong nilalabas si Dominican during the Holy Week, mukhang hindi po ito yon. And then ito again, the wooden floor part of the San Francisco Church. Yan, ganyang kalalaki po or ganyang kalaki ang simbahan po ng San Francisco po noon. And then one of the popular image of San Antonio de Padua, which is in the crucero or the transept part of the church. And then La Porteria or Sacristy, or actually sabi sa Ongping collection, this is the sacristy. But some documents, example in the Manila churches, this is the porteria or the entrance part sa pagitan ng simbahan at convent po ng mga praile. So this is the Nuestra Señora de la Porteria. Balik ko lang po. Ito po yung mga sinasabi doon sa libro. The altar is intricate in native art with a garland in fluting columns with the cherub flanks and the Purissima Conception. Meron po siyang octagonal ceiling, including the painting of the saints of the chapel, which is the Saint of the Cross or the Divina Señora de Dolores. So, ito po siguro yon. Hindi, sabi sa Ongping collection, this is the sacristy. But some documents na sinasabi dito, this is the chapel between the church and then the monastery or the friary. So, this is the Nuestra Señora de la Porteria. And then some comparative. And then one of these, lumabas na po to lately with Mr. Robbie de la Vega. Iba po yung feature nung ng San Pedro Bautista. Hindi po siyang traditional na nasa likod ng crucifix tapos hawak lang yung mga spear. But dito, open yung kanyang hands dito tapos yung chain openan. Tapos nung nag-uusap kami ni Teacher Robbie, sabi ko sa kanya, ano kaya nangyari sa mga batang ito? Kasi nung mas nauna kong nakita or mas nauna kong na-observe yung mga bata, nung sa photograph na to, I'm not sure kung 1943 itong photograph na to, pero yun, gusto ko malaman kung ano nangyari sa kanila, kung nabuhay ba sila after the war or part sila ng casualty. Anyway, just a segue lang po. And then for a human scale, kung makikita natin dito, in this photograph, medyo, this is a human scale, pero i-compare nito dito, ganito po kalalaking images natin. So kung ganyan po yung scaling natin, ibig sabihin nito, more than or 6-footer po ang mga images natin dito. So ibig sabihin nito, malaki yung simbahan natin in the San Francisco Church. And then some photographs again, which is nahalo lang po, a photograph in San Francisco del Monte in Quezon City. Next, the adjacent part of this church is the San Francisco Church or the VOT or the Venerable Order Tertiary or Tercera. So this chapel is dedication to the Immaculada Conception also. Again, this is the first time po lalabas po to in online platform from the Ongping collection of the Intramuros Administration. So ito po yung kambal na simbahan ng Intramuros. So in 19th century, nagkaroon po to ng renovation in the facade. So usually po ang makikita po natin sa gitna is the image of St. Louis of France, and then minsan si Santa Isabel daw at minsan si Immaculada Conception daw po ang nasa gitna nito. I'm not sure kung si San Fernando din yung nasa dito, but based on the documents na supporting nito, San Louis of France daw ang nakalagay dito. And then medyo natuwa kami dito, meron pong porter or portera sa simbahan na to. And obviously, kung makikita nyo po yung kanyang susi, ganyan po kalalaki yung kanyang susi. And then on the most right side of this photograph po is the image of Nuestra Señora de los Angeles that was, masyadong malabo, but in the Nipa Church of the Franciscan. So, yan po daw ang original na venerate ng mga Franciscan nung unang building pa po sa kanya. So, kung makikita nyo po dito, kanyang ceiling, ganyan din po siya. Quadpartite, yung kanyang kisame. And then, retablo mayor, retablo menor. So, andyan po yung Dolorosa and so on. Okay. Oh, teka lang, parang may kulang na picture. Baka later na lang po may makikita pa po tayo sa papung retablo. May comparison naman po. And then the Santo Domingo Church is the famed shrine of the Nuestra Señora del Rosario de Manila. So it's just a few blocks from the east of the Cathedral of Manila. Tapos designed by Felix Rojas, one of the earliest recorded architect here in the Philippines. Again, recorded. I'm not saying the first architect or the first licensed architect in the Philippines, which is Tomas Mapua, but one of the early recorded architects lang po. Hindi po namin sinasabi, siyang una. Then also, this is in 1587 to 41, also the sites of the Royal and Pontifical University of Santo Tomas. And then this is the head mission of the Dominican Order or the Santo Domingo Church. Tapos dito rin po nakalagay po ang Nuestra Señora del Rosario de Manila, and then also renovated in 1868. So, elements po niya before the earthquake or before the renovation, kung nakikita na po sa photograph, is also, kamukha siya po siya ng St. Paul's Cathedral in London. So, meron po siyang elements of Renaissance and Baroque architecture. But mas prominent po sa kanya ang pagiging Renaissance po. So, it's a twin bell tower also po. It's a multi-tiered structure, 2 level po. Tapos, ano po bang meron dito? According to the notes of Professor Jun Galang of Far Eastern University, kausap ko lang po kanina, nagpa-consult ako, kung tama ba yung in 1880, nagkaroon po ng Great Earthquake, and then in 1882, nagkaroon po ng typhoon. That's why, ito pong mga spire and pinnacles po dito, pagdating in this photograph po, nawawala na po sila. According to him, wooden lang po or timber lang po yung mga materials nito. Hindi po sila masonry. To be specific, Molave daw po ang mga materials ng mga yan. So yan, one of the best or the grandest church inside Intramuros. Again, to promote some episode of Intramuros Learning Session, i-review nyo na lang po yung story or about the Church of Santo Domingo inside Intramuros. This one, first time lang po natin makikita ang pink collection. Another view of Santo Domingo Church. View probably from Santa Catalina or Colegio de Santa Catalina. And then meron galing kay Professor Galang. And then some features of a neoclassical retablo of this church. We have the retablo mayor of this. So kung nakikita nyo po dito, this is the expectation. And then this is the design. So kanina nag-uusap kami ni Sir Jun kung ang tanong ko po sa kanya is bakit hindi natuloy totally yung intricate design of this. So sabi niya, number one probably is the economics. Baka masyadong mahal ang paggawa ng retablo mayor. Or number two, baka sabi lang ng client or ng mga praile na gusto nila ng mas simple lang. Baka lang po Yun lang po yung conclusion namin kanina sa pag-uusap namin. And then we have the nave and then the side aisle of the Santo Domingo Church, which is, makikita natin featured is meron din siyang side retablos din po. Okay, next. We have the pulpit, which is a neo-Gothic style. And then meron siyang tribuna. And then going to the Marian Chapel of the Lanaval de Manila. So, yan po. Iba-ibang view of the pulpit inside the Santo Domingo Church. Another one, kung makita nyo po dito, medyo malabo lang po, pero sumisilip po dun ng retablo menor. And then going to the convent or friary of the Dominicans. And then the Marian Chapel, wooden floor, and then question din namin ni Sir Jun Galang kung adjacent ba dito is going to the sacristy yung mga doors na yan. Then Our Lady of Lanaval, and then the sacristia or the sacristy of the Santo Domingo Church na another neo-Gothic style po siya. May kulang lang pong photograph. Sayang po. Later, medyo hindi ko yata nalagay. Pero meron pa pong mas malapit na photograph sa part na to. Another Ongping collection po. sobrang detail pa po dyan. Meron, at mukhang hindi ko po yata nalagay dito. Next, we have the Recollects, the Mother House, or the San Nicolas de Tolentino, or the San Nicolas Church, the first saint and the Augustinian family. So, landmark of the Augustinian Recollects, the House of the Black Nazarene also, or the popularly known Recoletos, or the Church of the Recoletos. So, this is the retablo of the Recoletos Church, though For me, evaluation ko lang po, ang pinakamaganda at ang pinaka-detailed retablo po sa Intramuros is the Recoletos Church po. That's my personal taste, personal opinion, and based on my anastylosis method of binilang ko how many columns, how many yung kanya Solomonic, how many images, how many tiers or level, siya po ang pinakamaraming poste, siya po may pinakamaraming nicho, siya pong pinakamataas, siya rin po may pinakamaraming bulaklak or ornamentations po sa lahat po na nakita ko or inobserve ko or kinompare ko po inside the Intramuros. So, another accounts po inside the Intramuros. So, various accounts describe the church as beautiful and grand or four-tiered bell tower, elaborate carvings. Also, mas popular po si Recoletos Church because of the Diego Serra pipe organ na naman po. So, yun po yung mga another detail. And then, one of our discussion with Fray Enrico or Architect Enrico Gallego, meron po daw sa parang regula nila na simple lang buhay nila pero dapat ang kanilang simbahan ay pinaka-engrande. Anyway, baka ma-discuss po na earlier or soon po yan. So, in this photograph lang po, ang gusto ko lang po pakita dito is kitang-kita po dito yung view of the legislative building or the currently the National Museum of the Philippines, pero before or during the Insular and the Commonwealth government in the Philippines, yan po yung ating upper house and lower house government system po natin after the Ayuntamiento de Manila. So inside Intramuros churches, tingnan po natin ito. Kung makikita nyo po dito is sa Intra 2. Highlight ko na lang po Palitan ko lang po yung highlight natin. Highlight. Okay. Kung makikita nyo po ito yung Intra 2 nito, iba po siya sa Intra 2 dito. Magkaiba po sila. Magkaiba rin po yung kanyang kisame, iba rin po yung design dito. Ano pa po nakikita nating magkaiba dito? Nakikita nyo po ba ang ating pulpito? Magkaiba. Dito po, nakikita po natin, dito naka-raise pa po, or rayos, ang tawag namin. May rayos. Dito, probably the Santa Fe or the Blind Faith. Tapos, intricate pa po yung panel ng pulpit. Dito, simple na lang. So, yon. Nagkaroon po ng early 1930s na renovation inside Intramuros. Inside the Recoletos Church. So, yung panahon na yon, baka sumasabay sa San Agustin Church nung dumating sila Alberoni, nagkaroon din po ng initiative na baguhin din po inside the Intramuros. So ito, example po. Kung makita po natin dito, tingnan nyo po yung retablo po dito. And then yung retablo po natin dito. Kung makikita nyo po dito, yung column shaft or yung poste po ng retablo natin dito, sa left photo, malinis na. Sa right photo, nakikita nyo po, naka-twist or Solomonical pa po yung kanyang mga columns. So this is the 1930s or 1937 probably. 1937 for the preparation of the National Eucharistic Congress po dito sa Philippines. So ang nangyari po dito, baka yung theory po namin katulad sa Pampanga na inuka or tinanggal yung mga details sa mga poste at gusto nila magkaroon ng neoclassical na retablo. At that time po, medyo may hype po para maging neoclassical architecture po ang mga simbahan natin. Kung makikita nyo naman po yung flooring natin, wooden floor versus mukhang naka-pave na po yung ating floor at the left photograph. Tapos dito po mukhang sa upper part po ng kanyang clerestory, may tribuna pa. Dito, naka-balusters na po ang ating interior. Then, kung nakikita nyo pa rin po dito in the right photograph, sumisilip pa po yung retablo. At the left photograph, wala na po yung retablo niya. So, yan po. So, yun nga po, 1937, nagkaroon po ng mga renovation inside the Recoletos Church. Some photographs of this from the collection of the Recoletos here in the Philippines or the province of San Ezequiel Moreno from online data po nila. So, the image of La Consolacion, image of Nazareno, and then Señor de la Pacencia. So, kung nakikita nyo po, very intricate po. Wala po kayong masabi kung gaano kadetalyado ang kanilang retablo. For me, what is reminiscent dito or anong pinakamalapit po dito, kung nakapunta na po tayo ng Bohol, probably the Baclayon Church, yan po yung pinakamalapit na kamuka ng mga ito dito sa Philippines. I think that's one of the popular lang na masabi ko. So, yan po, comparison po, some photographs. And then, this photograph po, kung nakikita nyo po, nalipat na po yung mga retablo dito sa nave going to the other side of the church. Hindi ko po ma-conclude kung ito po bang chapel na to is the chapel of the De La Salud. But, yun, at least a transept na lang ang term ko na ginamit doon. So, another feature is the pipe organ of Diego Serra naman, the popular builder of the bamboo organ in Las Piñas City, or the popular St. Joseph Church. So, the image of De La Salud. And then, exterior photographs for the boys and the girls. Kung makikita po natin to, I'm not sure, but in this architectural element po, ang meron pong kamukha na ito is San Pablo Cathedral in San Pablo, Laguna. Photographs of the Agustinian Recollects. So nakaputi, naka-tropical habit, then the black habit. And then I think in this photograph po, so recuerdo de la visita of the General Reverendo Padre Jesus Fernandez, probably nagkaroon sila ng convention dito. I'm not sure, but mukhang mas ika-clarify na natin with Brother Enrico kung ano bang nangyari sa event na to. Thank you for the data. Sorry na, sumobra lang ako. And then sa dome po pala, naka-8 po siya or 8-sided dome. Next, the Golden Dream or the San Ignacio Church. The first church compound was located the vast property, so tira-tirang lupa na lang din po ito. Also designed by architect Felix Rojas in a neoclassical style. According of this, the treasure of the House of Filipino art, wooden sculptures, panels, relief, and then particularly mula executed Filipino craftsman led by Isabelo Tampinco Jr. So this is the interior, some data pa po pala. Pulpit was designed by Academy of Arts in Manila by Agustin Saez, and then carved by Crispilo Hoxon. So mga artists po sila ni Isabelo Tampinco. Two large Zaragoza paintings, sacristy metalworks, and so on. Sobrang dami pa po ng craftsmanship ng simbahan na to. Now, kung i-compare ko po ito lahat, I think the well-documented church po talaga from the construction up to the builders hanggang sa post-construction po is the San Ignacio Church po. In 2019 po, na-reconstruct or trinay po ng government natin, which is the Intramuros Administration, na i-reconstruct po ang ating simbahan po, which is now the current house of the Intramuros Administration Museum. So they are royal granted missionaries religious order by the Jesuit, 1581, pero nga lang, nasuppress nga sila. In this photograph po from the Intramuros Administration, so ito po yung plano para magawa po sila. Next, another facade is a neoclassical. And then the Jesuit ruins from currently the pamantasan ng lungsod ng Maynila. So ito po yung simbahan po nila. And then another photograph po, first time lang din po makikita online, is this is the photograph viewing the narthex in the choir loft of the church. So yun, kung makikita nyo po, medyo very low po yung kanyang arkotoral, and then meron po niches dito. And then inside the church, the retablo, and then the ceiling details of this. So yan, very detailed, well-documented po ang San Ignacio Church. So tapos ito pa po, even the corner piece in the pendentive of the church, yung mga design kay Isabela Tampinco, yan, pati angels, sinabi na material, pati batikuling, the porta, the postigo, and then also na-feature pa siya sa isang magazine. So yung gallery loft ng San Ignacio is napakita rin na kamukha ng legislative building or the current National Museum ngayon sa upper session hall. So, hype na hype po talaga ang neoclassicism at this period po. So, another feature or view of the side or the aisle and then the pulpit. And then, a neoclassical retablos of this structure. So, hindi na po siya baroque kasi wala na po siyang scroll, wala na po siyang Solomonical elements, and then one-tiered or ibig sabihin nun, isang level lang po yung mga imahe natin or yung mga nicho ng mga santo natin. So, even the images of the San Ignacio Church, well-documented po. Talagang pinicturean pa sila hanggang sa baba. And then the last one is the youngest of all churches po dito is the Capuchin Shrine or the Lourdes Church. So images carved by sculptor Manuel Flores, adorned by Divina Pastora, which is include a high meter Our Lady of include a meter high Our Lady of Lourdes initially installed at the Cordial Grotto. So originally daw sa Divina Pastora din siya, but because of the popular devotion, nalipat na po siya sa Our Lady of Lourdes in 1897. So the Capuchin Shrine Lourdes Church, a new shrine underway in the Spanish-American War broke out. Capuchins beseech protection of Our Lady. So it's a neo-Romanesque style architecture again with the twin towers. And then the church was loved by more than 40 beautiful years and favorite church in the wedding and then the first communions during the American colonial period. Yeah. In some documents po in the magazine po during the American period, medyo ito po yung mga best of the best wedding hub in the century po. Lourdes Church or sa labas ng Intramuros is the Vincentian Church or the St. Vincent the Church in San Marcelino, Manila in Ermita, Manila. So silang dalawa po medyo naglalabanan sa wedding hub kasi first of all, bago sila. Pangalawa, ako, theory ko lang po, kasi meron silang electrical line. So mas maliit ang ilaw, mas marami pong ilaw yung kanyang na-feature po doon. So kasi yan, mga bago sila eh. So there were already plans to reconstruction in 1950s, but they had to sell the property precious crown of the Our Lady of Lourdes to finance the new construction in La Loma. The site now is the Bainabato Cultural Heritage or the Silahis Souvenir Shop. So ito po mga first time lang po makikita the Lourdes Church facade and then the main door of the church. So ayun, it's multi-tiered voussoir po niya, arches. Pero wala lang po siyang trumoy sa gitna since maliit lang siya. Pero kung makikita nyo po, iron glass na po yung kanyang door transom. Okay, next, another photograph showing the floor. Wooden pa po siya, pero dito medyo malabo na. Yan. Tapos, meron pa pong iba. So, ito po yung mga images. Kitang-kita po dito yung scale. Kung makikita po natin, this is the tabernacle, the tableau altar, and then human scale, baka ganito lang po kalit ang tao. Ibig sabihin po nito, maliit lang po talaga yung retablo po nila. And then, the image of Nuestra Señora de Lourdes, image of San Francisco na naka-elevate to the clouds. Another style, hindi na po siya traditional Baroque. And then the image of Sacred Heart. Tapos, meron din pong not bamboo, but meron din po silang pipe organ. Pero ano pong bago dito? Yung pipe organ po nila mismo is naka-adjacent na po sa loft ng choir loft. Kasi po, in the Filipino culture or Spanish-style retablos po, usually po, ang retablo po ng mga simbahal sa mga Spanish colonies, nasa gilid lang po. But one of the earliest na nag-transition or nag-iba na po ng method of installation ng pipe organ is yung Lourdes Church na po. And then in this photograph po, in the Ongping collection, yung holy water stove po nila is silver po. And then bonus na po, we have the monasteries, chapels, and hospital education facilities. So we have the Real Monasterio de Inmaculada Concepcion de la Madre de Dios de las Monjas Clarisas, or the Monjas de Santa Clara. So this is the retablo mayor of the Santa Clara Church or the Santa Clara Monastery. So puro babae sila. Obviously, nasa gitna naman po si Santa Clara. We're not sure kung sino po yung mga iba pa pong images or saints within the level of St. Clair, but yun nga po, probably St. Agnes, tapos yung mga contemporary saints pa po ng Franciscan Order. And then in this photograph po, kitang-kita po dito is a porter. Baka this is going inside the parlor, going to the church. And then kung makikita nyo po sa taas, yun na po yung parlor window nila. I'm not sure kung same style po sila ng katulad na nasa katipunan po, na nasa likod ng nave po, or nasa choir level po, yung parlor window po ng mga mongha. Tapos, now if we ingest po natin some documents po, dito po papasok po yung elements na na-immortalize po sila sa Noli Me Tangere and then the El Filibusterismo, which is, kunyari po, sa Noli Me Tangere, dito po pumasok si Maria Clara, so na-immortalize po sila doon. And then Mother Jeronima de la Asunción, the foundress of the Manila Monastery, which is kung ilalagay po natin ng allegory of the El Filibusterismo, baka siya po yung allegory of Doña Jeronima na related to the Mother Jeronima. Kung alam niyo po yung story na yun, reviewin nyo na lang po sa El Fili, yung about the Archbishop. Next, exterior view. Kitang-kita po natin dito, very high yung kanyang fortress. Trinay siguro ng mga Amerikano na picture ng inside the fortress, but ayan, mukhang hindi sila successful. Then the facade, very simple, very austere. And then Real Pontificio Universidad de Manila, or Universidad de Santo Tomas, sorry. Okay, a photograph inside the Santo Tomas Chapel. This is the interior. In the left photograph, medyo malinis na, but in the right photograph, kung makikita nyo po, meron lang pong modification na meron pong trumploy sa taas po niya. And mas prominent po yung kanyang arco toral. Floors, probably, parehas lang po, kung makikita natin dito. Tinanong ko yung photograph, bakit may mga tables. One theory namin, meron pong examination for dito, for the theology department. Then, Colegio de Santa Catalina de Sena. So, medyo kamukha po siya ng Santo Tomas, but tingnan nyo po, same lang po sa neoclassical retablo with the image of the Blessed Mother. Then, yung feature po niya, meron po siyang mga boss elements, and then with the chandelier. Probably, this is a ground floor level of the chapel. Next, Colegio de Santa Rosa. So, yan po, the facade, the main door, and then the interior, which is a neo-Gothic style of a retablo. Oh, including the ceiling also, I mean, the interior. So, kung neo-Gothic na si Santo Domingo at adjacent lang ang lot nila sa site ng simbahan ng mga Dominican, probably kung si Felix Rojas ang gumawa nun, ako, itutuuri ko rin, baka si Felix Rojas din po yung architect ng chapel na ito. And then we have Colegio de San Juan de Letran, which is from the UST archives. Tapos Letran main door, and then another Dominican friar. Para lang po hindi magkalituan po baka mamaya comparison lang po. We have Santa Rosa on the left side, and then the left side photograph, yan po yung Letran facade. One indication na lang po siguro, meron pong poste sa kanyang canopy level. Sa canopy level po or the cantilevered structure po ng Santa Rosa, wala po. Yun po yung difference ng dalawa po Baka lang po magkalituhan lang po tayo. Tsaka yun po, sa eaves natin, magkaiba rin po So yun. Next, we have the Chapel of the Letran, the Retablo of the Letran, and then the Nuestra Señora de Aranzazu, which is devotion to the San Mateo Rizal or the San Mateo city or municipality. So, ano pa bang meron dito? Sa coffered ceiling again with the intrication, yung kanyang flooring, ganyan po siya, nakabaldosas, and then the image of the Retablo Mayor. Bertero del Campana. So the Retablo from the Alex Castro collection. So dito po yung mga RVM or the Religious of Virgin Mary. And then the Daughters of Charity or the Hijas de Caridad, which is my mga nanay-nanay ko kasi nung elementary ako, from the Daughters of Charity School. So from the exterior of the San Juan de Dios Hospital, so the facade and then the original plan of the hospital. And then this is the Retablo Mayor. Sorry po, disclaimer lang po, nagkamali, but this is the main door of Santa Isabel. Sa mga Daughters of Charity din po. So sa Retablo of San Juan de Dios, kita-kita po natin dito, we have the image of Vincent de Paul and then image of Catherine Labore in the operation of the Miraculous Medal. So one of the distinction this is a Daughters of Charity church. Building. And then inside the chapel of Santa Isabel naman, napapaghalo-halo ko po and then the image of Señor Tesoro. Oh, may kulang na naman akong picture, pero anyway, sorry po. Typological comparative analysis. Patapos na po tayo. We have the typological analysis for facade. So sa facade, it's a three-tiered structure, pare-parehas po. It's a neo-Romanesque, a Baroque style, but a pure element pa rin po ng Renaissance for the San Agustin or the image or the Church of San Pablo. And then a neoclassical style in Ionic columns of San Ignacio. Ang may pinakamaraming images dito is the Manila Cathedral. San Ignacio, meanwhile, wala pong images sa labas of the saints. In the most intricate of all, the San Francisco Church, we have only one bell tower. San Nicolas is a three-tiered structure pa rin, a Renaissance influence. And then the neo-Gothic style of Santo Domingo Church. Lourdes Church, no images but prominent element of neo-Romanesque architecture na meron din siyang bell towers. Next, bell towers. Twin Tower before of San Agustin, the Tower of Santo Domingo Church, and then the Lourdes Church. So, sila Twin Towers. But ang pinakamalaki sa kanila, Santo Domingo. Manila Cathedral, an Ochovado style, Baroque style, and then quarter style or four-sided, San Nicolas. Tapos San Ignacio with naka-belfry, and then the San Francisco Church, hindi po siya independent structure. It's just a part of the pediment of the structure. Next, for the nave, Manila Cathedral, naka-dome siya, naka-boveda siya, including San Agustin, and then the Lourdes Church, pare-parehas po sila. Tromploy po yung dalawa, yung isa, no records kung nag-tromploy din po siya. The San Ignacio, coffered ceiling, also the San Nicolas de Tolentino, naka-tromploy din po siya. And then San Francisco Church, and then Santo Domingo Church. Sa ceiling, tingnan natin. Boveda, vaulted ceiling, and then ceiling of San Francisco Church, tapos ganun din. Vaulted ceiling for the VOT. Flooring naman, Wooden floor, polygonal elements, wooden floor except for San Nicolas. Pero kanina nakita natin, wooden floor din siya. Manila Cathedral, ano na rin siya, baldosas or ceramic sometimes. For the doors, Porta, San Agustin, San Francisco, and Lourdes. San Agustin, most intricate. Even Baroque element siya, may Rococo because of the C-scroll, S-scroll elements. And then Lourdes Church is meron siyang door transom. Ibig sabihin nito, may bintana yung kanyang pintuan. Ito naman C-scroll, S-scroll. So, nagiging Baroque. Of course, San Francisco, because of the vow of poverty, probably, kaya siya simple. San Ignacio Church, nagkamali lang po ako ng PowerPoint again yata. Mali yung picture ng photograph ko, pero a simple one. San Nicolas and then Santo Domingo. Pulpits, San Agustin, San Ignacio, San Nicolas de Tolentino, San Francisco and Lourdes, and then Santo Domingo. Balik ko lang po baka may naghahanap. Ayun po. San Agustin na lang po ang natitira. San Ignacio, kung nakikita nyo naman po yung kanyang pulpit, yung kanyang cantilever, very intricate. Tapos may Santa Fe, walang Santa Fe, merong Santa Fe. Dito, Bulaklak, Lourdes, unknown. Santo Domingo Church, sorry, hindi ko po sure kung sino po na top level niya. Then Retablos, Retablo Mayor, Lourdes, Manila Cathedral, San Francisco, and San Nicolas de Tolentino. Which is again, for me, San Nicolas ang pinaka maganda or pinaka-intricate. Then, a neoclassical is San Ignacio, for niche of Santo Domingo, and another neoclassical of San Agustin Church after the Juan de los Reyes retablo na nasa cloister na po ang ilang museum. And then, sa retablos of San Nicolas de Tolentino, ayun, naging bias na naman ako sa presentation ko, pero sila yung may pinakamaraming document din sa mga minor. But kung ilalaban natin si San Agustin po, as recorded, ang may pinaka marami. How about the retablo minor? Sorry, another pala po pala. Ayun, ito po pala yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na retablo ng VOT na Rococo style na retablo which is sa Calvario. Kitang-kita po natin yung flamboyant elements po niya na nagsisi-scroll, S-scroll po siya. But the altar panel, mukhang Baroque lang. So, yung siguro nagkaroon ng renovation, yung upper part lang yung kanilang binago. Neoclassical, and then the retablo of the Santo Domingo Church, of the La Naval de Manila. Side chapels, Arzobispado, DOT, the Naval, and the San Francisco Church. Warlof, Lourdes, San Agustin, San Nicolas. Ayan po yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina. Lahat po nung dalawa po, nasa gilid pa rin po yung kanilang organ, but sa Lourdes, nabago na po yung style po nila. Roof and dome, Manila Cathedral, Santo Domingo, medyo naranja. Tapos yung isa naman po is naka 4 aguas. 4 aguas, 8 vado. Marian images, Lourdes, San Agustin, San Ignacio, San Nicolas, Santo Domingo. So Lourdes, de la Correa, La Consolacion, Immaculada, de la Salud, La Naval, Santo Rosario, and then Immaculada ulit. So 2 points for Immaculada Concepcion. Then friars, we have the Capuchin, Jesuits, Dominican, Franciscans. Yun. So paano tayo hindi magkakalituan sa Capuchin versus the Franciscan Alcantarin? Kung makikita nyo po yung hood, magkaiba po ang sa Franciscan Capuchin versus sa Franciscan lang. And then sa Jesuit, just sa parang secular order lang din po. Tapos, kung nakikita po, dati yung rosary po ng Dominicans is nakalabas po or nakalagay po sa kanilang hood. But ngayon, nasa belt na lang po nila. Best example po or popular capuchin na lang po is Padre Pio. Yun. And then Augustinian, paano natin malalaman kung magkaiba sila? Sahod ng Augustinian Recollects. Mas maikli po sa Recoletos. Sa sinturon, dire-diretso po ang sinturon ng ng Augustinian. Sa Recoletos naman po, parang nakahiwalay po yung kanilang belt. So, conclusion and aspiration. So, in Manila 1945, ito na po yung nangyari. Nagkaroon na po ng liberation. And then, ayun na po. Unti-unti nasisira. Natira naman yung mga shells. Ayun, kung gusto nyo agad makita to, nandun lang po sa Santa Ana, Manila. Nasa labas lang po. And then the image of St. Anthony nasa Forbes Park lang po. Then, yeah, Manila Cathedral. And then, outside the walls, including the Dominican Church. Sayang, no? Natira naman ng mga shells, pero wala, hindi tinuloy. Outside the walls, even going to the Ermita and Malate district, damay-damay lahat. So, even the Quiapo area. So, di ba, according to the history, after the Warsaw, Manila is the most na-damaged na cities in the effect of the World War. And then, the post-war effect, the post-colonial modernity. Na until now, I'm not sure kung tama yung word na gagamitin ko, but it is the problem also of the Intramuros Administration of some informal settlers, and then some buildings, yun na, nagkaroon ng modernity. Buti nga, nagkaroon na ng administration na rules and regulations na dapat ganito yung styles natin inside the walls. And then aspiration, again, this is my ministry, this is the way of saving souls and to glorify our Savior. So that's why I'm very, very advocate in this lecture sa mga to. So for me, ayan, sana may mga sumunod sa akin, sana may mga next generations pa na mag-continue about this lecture. Buti nga, nasisimulan ng mga younger architects. Example, Paulo Cerezo, tapos si Bea Dolores, Renacimiento Manila. Nagkakaroon sila ng effort na gawin ang mga reconstruction or anastylosis method of this building. For me, ako siguro kung bata-bata pa ako kasi graduate ako 2013. The technology in the 3D architecture that time, nagsisimula pa lang. Pero itong mga sumunod na sa akin, thankful ako, nagkakaroon sila ng time para i-reconstruct yung mga photos na to. Now is challenge and open questions in this topic. So we have seen much development of the churches reconstruction in the Philippines. So sometimes misguided or I'm not sure din the proper term, pero minsan naghahalo-halo, minsan chapsoy, or minsan kung anong makuha sa internet, ita-download, then i-apply. Yun ang nagiging problem ngayon in terms of renovation of churches. Tapos, open conclusion or open questions is, ano nga ang Intramuros ngayon kung hindi sila nasira? Sa tingin nyo ba, kung hindi nasira yung mga simbahan natin ngayon, ganun pa rin kaya ka-faithful ang mga Filipino? In terms of, tourism industry, katulad kaya tayo ng Macau, yung Macau ngayon hanggang ngayon, walkable lang yung mga simbahan nila per churches sila. They have own version of Intramuros din because of the Portuguese colony. Yun, ang taas ng tourism nila sa mga simbahan din, may pilgrimage din sila. Ganun din kaya yung sinasabi nila na Milan of Asia, pero I don't like that term na kino-compare tayo to Milan or Paris of Asia pala, sorry. Yun, ganun din kaya yung mangyayari sa atin. How about the vocation of the religious life? Continuous pa rin kaya? So, merong impact according to Fray Enrico, baka mataas pa rin ang bukasyon natin. Then, my question to the audience is, my appeal to the audience, this data is simula ko pa lang po. Nagsisimula pa lang po tayo. sa mga challenges natin. We are open for questions pa rin with Intramuros Administration. Ang dami pa po naming data na hinihingi. Open pa rin po kami sa mga data. Kung meron po sa inyo, sa audience, makapagbigay ng data sa amin, we're very open. We're very for exchange of knowledge for this. So yun again, simula pa lang po to ng data gathering natin. Hindi pa po ito yung final research natin. Soon, baka si Intramuros Administration maglabas ng libro na to. But at least, for initiative of the Intramuros Administration, thankfully, ginawa nila ng paraan ito. And then the existing of the archival photos, ayun na. Thank you so much to Intramuros Administration. And then last one, question is the immortal question. Pwede pa bang mabalik ang mga simbahan sa Intramuros? Yun ang very, very laging tanong. Kung saan naman lang ibalik kahit fasad. Ang sagot lang po dyan, very simple. Kung gusto natin mabalik ang mga simbahan sa loob ng Intramuros, ibalik din muna natin siguro yung mga religious order inside Intramuros. Because in heritage, di ba, we have the tangible and the intangible elements of the heritage na kailangan natin ng physical, kailangan din natin ng soul, ng structure ng heritage. So, meron kang simbahan, pero wala naman doon yung main users of the building. So, in short, kung tama ba yung term ko, is nagiging theme park na lang po kung gusto lang natin is the facade ang mabalik sa loob ng Intramuros. So, ayun, again, still we're developing pa rin po this study. So, acknowledgements from Fray Enrico, Robbie Del Vega, Lorenzo Bucas, Bea Dolores, Paulo Cerezo, and Father Ricky Villar. So, Rachel Tan, John de Assis, UST Benavides Library and Biblioteca Nacional de España. From the Intramuros Administration, we have Ramil Tibayan, Dino Carlos Santos, and Rancho, Arcilla. So for the photograph references, my flaws in my presentation, hindi ko po nalagyan lahat ng APA or reference for photograph, but most of the new photographs po are original in this references, and then the new photos from the Ongping collection na pwede na daw po i-release according to Intramuros Administration. Soon, isa-isa lang po, i-upload natin po yan isa-isa with the blessing of the Intramuros Administration. So, we're excited. Ito po sila. And then references, of course, pinaka-immortal sa lahat, Javeliana, and then Jose Simbahan. And then other references. And then shameless plugging again. Follow my Instagram, the RDG Ecclesiastical Architecture. And then that's all. Okay. Thank you so much. Haba ng lecture ko 1.5.
Okay, we can still accommodate questions. So everyone is free to ask questions. So thank you for that presentation, Roy. It was very comprehensive. So you have expanded, no? You've expanded and deepened further the discussion on ecclesiastical heritage in Intramuros, and not to mention your previous talk with us at the Intramuros Learning Sessions. So mas pinalalim niyo pa po yung diskurso ng pamanang ecclesiastiko dito sa Ciudad Morada. Now, this is a very refreshing talk because aside from the historical angle, your presentation is primarily from an architectural perspective and on how each church or chapel related to each other architecturally, physically, and aesthetically. So we move beyond the purely historical narrative and we analyze more the physical fabric. So this is actually quite refreshing kasi walang masyadong ganitong work. So this is indeed a very significant addition to related with ritual. And what I personally like about this talk is that there are a lot of photos ng mga bago. And thank you for helping us promote the Ongping collection of the Intramuros Administration. For our viewers, the Ongping collection, our archival photographs from our archives have already been digitized and is actually available in our Google Arts and Culture page. So feel free to go to Google Arts and Culture and key in Intramuros Administration, and then look for the Ongpin collection. And then together with our page there, we have also digitized a lot of our museum collections. Right. So to start this open forum, I'd like to ask you a very broad question first. So broad muna tayo before we go to the specifics. No? How would you describe, in your own words, how would you describe Philippine ecclesiastical architecture during the Spanish colonial period?
Ano ba? Yung ayoko gamitin term nung kay Habeliana and Jose, but in my personal opinion, Philippine church architecture are mas maliliit. Hindi sila kasing taas ng mga buildings in the Iberian Peninsula or in Europe, also in the Utopia, which is the Americas. In the Philippine church architecture is maliliit, hindi sagad-sagaran ng spaces na na-occupy. Even the ornamentations is minsan sa harapan lang or panlabas lang. And then, yun, ganun for me, I interpret the church architecture here in the Philippines. But this, how become it Filipino? Well, of course, gawa ng Pilipino, gawa para sa mga Pilipino. So, it is a Filipino architecture. Yun.
sabi nga dito ni Nonya Chongko,
hi ma'am, Donya Nonya.
Yeah, sabi niya, information overload naman po, so much to digest. Which asks for another session, maybe another session with you perhaps to
Santa Rosa.
Yeah, maybe. And with regard to that comment by Ms. Nonya, meron ditong comment si Dick Lapitan. So, is this research of yours available? Like, is this published? Or is this presented for the first time in this webinar?
This is for the first time pa lang po natin nilabas. Well, of course, this is a personal. This is labor of love lang, parang kay Father Ricky. Trip-trip lang, napagtripan, may extra time. So, for the people, for the Filipinos, for my kababayans, eto, nilalabas natin kasi very supportive si Intramuros Administration. Kung in the future ba magiging libro to, I'm not sure kung ako yung maglalabas, pero I will support kung sino maglalabas. Yun na lang.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Question lang about the styles of the churches. Now, excluding the movable components such as the statues or the other features like yung mga retablos, how would you say that there is a particular style or character per religious order? And further into that question, how would you distinguish aesthetically and architecturally a church built or designed by the seculars versus the regulars?
Ang hirap. Ang hirap to na. Paano mo distinguish kung seculars or ano? Lahat sila kasi naka-template. Lahat sila based on the books na dinala ng mga friars. Now, about the question, part of the question ba is paano ma-distinguish kung anong style?
No, is there a distinction with regard to style or character or maybe just the general feel or look per religious order? Would you say that there is?
Mukhang meron naman. I think sa sizes, which is confirmed by Dean Lorelai de Viana before na dinidiscuss niya sa amin. In terms of style, I'm not sure, but the size of the church. Kung sa size of the church, kung makikita natin, the Augustinian churches, malalaki. The Franciscan church, maliliit. Then, if you visit some churches in Laguna, Lakeside, some churches of doon, example, Pila, going to Lokban, going to Tayabas, yung isang side of the wall ng church nila, walang windows, and then maliliit. But, bawing-bawi naman sa ornamentations. In terms of sino bang may pinakamaraming rococo, as per my personal visit sa mga churches, si Franciscan ang may pinakamaraming may retablo na rococo style. Pagdating naman sa Dominican churches, malalaki din, going to Pangasinan, malalaki din ang mga simbahan nila, well ornate din ang mga retablos nila. And then, paano ba si recollects? Lahat din sila isang, just sa, parang barn type or diretsong simbahan lang in Bohol. In Samar Province naman, ang na-observe ko sa mga retablos ng mga Jesuit, including Cavite area, well intricate yung kanilang retablos. So yun, ang kulang-kulang talaga dito sa data na to, in this presentation. Meron na akong data, may nilatag na akong statistics kung sino yung pinakamarami, sinong pinaka-onte. So yun, nagko-conflict lahat. But again, my general Agustinian is malaki, mga Franciscan maliliit, well-ornamented din ng mga Dominicans. Then the Agustinian Recollects is very simple nung na-observe ko sa Visayas. I think yun yung masasagot ko.
This question is about scale, no? So, going back to that, to the scale, to the sizes of the churches, you were able to present in your presentation a comparative analysis on the styles, on the aesthetics, on the intricacies and ornamentations. But were you also able to compare the churches in terms of scale, like which one is the biggest, which one is the highest, the tallest, which one is the shortest, smallest in terms of floor
actually,
area?
meron dapat ako noon. Hindi ko na nalagay kanina. Which is the tallest, either si San Agustin or si Santo Domingo. Manila Cathedral or Santo Domingo. Silang dalawa yung naglalaban. Then, yun. Sa size or sa height. Ano pa ba? Sorry.
How about the floor area, in terms of floor area?
Floor area, kung compound ang pag-uusapan natin, si Dominica ng pinakamalaki. Then, kung monastery size naman, si San Agustin ang pinakamalaki. Kasi, 3 blocks din ang kinuha ni San Agustin pero wala silang campus. Tapos, smallest compound is Lourdes Church of the Capuchins. Yun po.
Yeah. This question is from Miguel Ordonio. How would you describe the color palette during the colonial era?
Sorry, I cannot answer the colored palette.
Okay.
For that data sa lang po. But about that na lang, sige, sabihin ko na rin po. About the San Agustin Church, during the time of Father Galiende, di ba? It's a color peach of yung kanyang facade. Then I'm not sure sa color of of Santo Domingo Church. Hindi ko rin po ma-distinguish. Disclaimer po, colorblind po ako.
Yeah. Going to the definition, sa definitions naman tayo. Like, how would you differentiate? Something is a very basic, no? Pero marami yung nagko-conflict when it comes to this. How would you distinguish between a church and a chapel? I'm asking this kasi in the case of the Orden Tercera, some would call it a church, some would call it a chapel. And actually, it's quite interesting to note that as per Javeliana, the Orden Tercera Chapel was actually converted into a provisional cathedral in 1863. So technically, it was a pro-cathedral as well. No? So, in your definition, in your operational definition, is it by ecclesiastical status or by architectural design? So,
both? We can say both na lang. Usually, the chapels is mga supporting facilities within the main church. That's my distinction sa kanila.
So the church is the main.
Is the main, then the chapels yung supporting spaces sa kanila.
Thank you for that. And with regard to the convents themselves, I mean, we focused the discussion on the churches, no? The architectural styles, the aesthetics of the churches. How about the convents? How would you describe the architectural style of the convents?
So all the convents mostly is based from the bahay na bato pa rin. So it's a half stone structure. So stone structure in the ground level and then the upper part is timber pa rin. And then kanina nakita natin one of the best examples is the Letran na nakikita rin sa Dominican compound. And then most of them pa rin Dos Aguas. Some photographs pa rin na lumabas in the session of Professor Jun Galang Dominican compound, or I'm not sure kung umabot ba siya ng 5 levels yung kanyang convent sa kanya. Kung yun ang sasabihin natin kung sino bang may pinaka malaki na residential or convent of the friars. In terms naman of San Agustin Church, complex building po siya. Meron siyang 3 major buildings. Hindi ko rin alam yung mga supporting details niya, pero one building is for the missionaries also. Meron silang compound na exclusively for the provincial office of the Holy Name Province. So, yun po.
This one is again from Miguel Ordonio. Is there any reason why the Franciscans built twin churches? Is there any particular consideration? We have one in Intramuros and another set outside in Singalong, in Manila. Or is this in San Pablo?
Again, sorry.
Is there any particular reasons why the Franciscans built twin churches? Like, for example, in the Intramuros and outside we have in Singalong.
Singalong is dati siyang Capuchin. Sa mga Capuchin siya. So it's a part of the Paco complex. Paco district.
I think ang tinutukoy niya dito sa San Pablo, yung twin churches.
The twin churches. Same concept of the San Pablo pala, sorry. Pagkarinig ko po Singalong. The twin churches in is for the parish is the Our Lady of Loreto, and then yung isa naman po is for the Our Lady of Pilgrimage or the Peregrina. So it's also a version of the twin church inside the Intramuros. So for the friars and then for the Venerable Order Tertiary or Tercera. So same concept lang po sila. Bakit sila twin churches?
Do you think there's any particular reason why the churches transition from having a wooden flooring to that of stone? Because in the presentation that you have shown, a lot of the interior shots, the churches had wooden floors.
Mm-hmm.
But in other photos, presumably later photos, it's now in stone, such as in marble. Is there any particular reason why they discarded the wooden flooring?
Basic, probably renovation trend, or gusto na nila ng mas bagong flooring. Ganun yung because kung pag-uusapan naman natin ang loading system of the users inside the structure, if timber pa rin ang flooring natin, probably sirang-sira na rin siya. And then, kung in terms of economics, usong-uso that time, ang renovation, usong-uso yung nagiging neoclassical ang simbahan, kahit baroque siya. So yun, I think the main reason is the economics. One of the best example here, I think Paulo Cerezo, I think andito siya. He will agree from the San Sebastian, Save San Sebastian. They have a data na dati wooden floor ang San Sebastian, then pinalitan nila ng baldosas. So, not promoting the Machuca tiles, but naging Machuca tiles na siya para lang ma-visualize natin.
Would you say that the flooring was originally wooden for its entire history, then suddenly stone only in the later part? Or do you have any comment on that?
No, I don't have.
Yeah. We have a question from Jacil Chongson. This is with regard to the materials used in construction. So, were they sourced locally? Were they imported?
Part of my scope delimitation, sinabi ko, hindi ko rin nasabi siya, pero I'm not sure din. Pero some theories or some data, according to Professor Jun Galang, yung images, example, in Santo Domingo, trinay nila i-purchase sa Spain, kaso hindi natuloy, naging local na lang. Parang ganun.
Mm-hmm. This is from Reverend Father Ricardi Macalino. So, Architect Roy, masasabi niyo po ba, based on your research, na may Filipino flavor ang mga structures na ito? Like what we see in the facade of the Miagao in Santo Tomas de Villanueva?
Okay, kung i-compare din po natin, pwede po what makes it Filipino, again, the size. Next is the structural element, the buttresses. We have angled buttresses, ibig sabihin naka-angled siya, yung mga poste po natin. So it's featured as an earthquake baroque po talaga, which makes very Filipino kasi in the other countries, kahit neighboring countries na lang, Macau, ano pa bang mga may Catholic churches, even in Indonesia, nakita ko yung mga simbahan nila, hindi sila angled yung kanilang poste. In terms of sizes naman, how makes it Filipino, ayun, maliliit compared to the other countries talaga. Ano pa bang in terms of ornamentations, kung paano siya nagiging very Filipino, I'm not sure. Pero in terms of materials na lang, we are more abundant if timber elements compared to the Pero kung Miag-aw po ang pagbabasihan natin, siya na po talaga yung best example. We can say then also some of the paintings kung local made sila. And then, pati sa mga images, makikita natin na kung local images sila na medyo naif yung kanilang style. So, other than Miagao, probably we can give an example is the Church of Paete, na very Filipino din. Kung makikita din natin na San Cristobal din doon, na merong bago and then the lumang version, which is, I'm not sure kung nare-restore na po ba ng National Historical Commission. So, yun po. And then, again, in the context of theory of architecture naman po of Dr. Cabalfin, as long as it is gawa ng Pilipino, gawa sa Pilipinas, at ginawa para sa Filipino, it is a Filipino architecture. Not literally sinasabi naman doon na pag sinabing Filipino, kailangan may kalabaw, kailangan may mangga, kailangan may chiko, kailangan may Hindi naman po ganon, pero hindi yun ang exact elements para maging Filipino architecture ang isang simbahan po. Yun po.
Meron ditong interesting point si Pamela Amador relevant to reconstruction. Sabi niya, no need to reconstruct. Sabi niya, because she said the churches were originally built to attract native Filipinos then to believe and follow our colonizers. Sabi niya, the reason why we do not anymore need to reconstruct is that what we need is to strengthen our Catholic faith and entice more followers to greater spirituality. And maybe for her, hindi na necessary ang reconstruction for that. How do you think?
Hi, Ma'am Pamela. She's my contractor. Our contractor with Father Alex Bautista. Yes, I agree with her po. I agree po. It's all about faith. Some question na bakit gusto natin ibalik ang ang churches. Baka lang talaga namimiss natin. Yun lang talaga. For me, that's my opinion. Namimiss lang natin ang mga simbahan sa Intramuros. Kaya gusto natin sila ibalik. But again, it's all about faith. Tama si Ma'am Pamela, si Architect Pamela, about that.
Thank you for that. In the San Agustin Church, right now, there's this emblem prominently displayed, the double-headed eagle. Now, question is that unique to the Agustinians or did the other churches also have that? And if so, what is the association with the House of Habsburg?
Padre Ricky, gusto mo sagutin yun? About the Habsburgs, the royal grant of the king, kasi nga ang ganda ng contribution ng Holy Name Province dito sa Philippines. I think much better mag-explain noon si Father Ricky. Siya ang perfect mag-explain. I know the answer, but mas maganda from the museum director.
Hi, Father.
Hello, Father Ricky. About the Habsburg daw po.
Actually po, ang two-headed eagle or the symbol of the Habsburg is granted only to the province of the Most Holy Name of Jesus of the Philippines because of the success because of the success of the Augustinian mission in the Philippines and the Far East. Not all the Augustinian can use the two-headed eagle. Tanging province lang na Most Holy Name of Jesus of the Philippines at yung Santo Niño image ang pwedeng gumamit nito. So kaya po, kung inyong mapapansin sa mga simbahang ginawa ng Agustinian hanggang noong 18th century, may mga two-headed eagle sa kanilang pulpit, sa basement, sa retablo, o kahit sa communion rail. Kasi ito yung royal privilege given to the province of the Most Holy Name of Jesus. But again, not all the Agustinian pwedeng gumamit ng symbol na to, ng emblem na to.
How about, sir, the food dogs? The dogs in front of the church. Was that also unique to the San Agustin?
No, Father Ricky, di ba, in our biennial convention of the church heritage by the UST CCPET, nakita namin sa Cebu, halos lahat din ng simbahan sa Cebu, meron din mga food dogs. Yan.
Meron ditong comment si Richard Bautista. Napansin niya, yung UST Arch of the Centuries, meron din daw Habsburg Eagle na double-headed. So, Dominican siya.
Hi, Architect Richard. Father Ricky!
Well, actually, according to Father Galanda sa kanyang book, Angel and Stone, it's more an economic tie between the Filipino and the Chinese. It's more than on yung mga Chinese artisans, but it's more on economic ties ng mga between Filipino and the Chinese kung bakit may mga pudogs dito sa mga simbahan ng mga Agustinians. Wala po itong kinalaman na paglalagay ng pudogs ay nagpapaswerte sa simbahan o nagbibigay ng good vibes. Wala pong ganon. Kung meron pong ganito dahil sa yung economic ties ng mga Chinese at ng mga Pilipino. So that's according to Father Galenda sa kanyang libro Angel and Stone.
Thank you so much for that, Father. Now, sabi din ni Architect Richard, sa Morong Church meron din daw food dogs. Yeah. And maybe I can add to what Architect Richard commented about the Habsburg Eagle sa UST. UST was a royal university as well, so maybe they were bestowed with a double eagle as well because it was funded directly by the crown. Maybe that's the reason why they also have the double-headed eagle. Anyway, so we are actually running out of time for our open forum. Now, before we end this session, Architect Roy, considering your experience in ecclesiastical architecture, in your professional experience in architecture, in ecclesiastical architecture, what is your message to our viewers who would like to seek a similar path?
Okay, for those who want young architects, actually, pwede rin mga mas matanda pa po sa akin. In the church architecture practice, if we're talking about faith in our country, we're still hoping pa rin. I'm still hoping sana dumami tayo. We need more more collaborations. Hindi lang naman po need ng as an architect or designer in terms of the ecclesiastical architecture practice. In my office, I already have a contractor which is specialized in the church architecture. I have an artist na rin na nag-effort to study about the church architecture. So it's more on the collaboration. So I'm not saying na exclusively pwede mag-practice in the church architecture, but we can say that church art na lang. Sana in the future, more time to study, more exposure in the church practice, yun ang need eh. Because we don't have any formal study pa rin po or formal school in the ecclesiastical art here in the Philippines. Good thing, some of the masters, example, Maestro Willie Layug in Pampanga, nag-share na rin siya within his barangay, within his community, sinishare na rin niya yung knowledge niya. So, ayun, sana dumami tayo. Let's be open-minded. Of course, business-wise, church architecture practice hindi ganun ka-consistent, hindi siya ganun kabilis, hindi rin mabilis magbayad ang mga simbahan kasi dinadaan po ito sa donations. So yun, kung gusto niyo mag-practice ng church architecture, it's all about heart, it's all about passion, it's all about kung gusto, lang talaga, more on passion lang po talaga. Bakit, I don't know, kung bakit ako nakaka-survive in this. So yun, I can share this, student pa lang po ako, alam na ng mga classmates ko to, I'm a history geek. Then, my dean Lorelai De Viana, he endorsed me in the National Museum. Then, after National Museum, I worked to Father Alex Bautista. So, probably, tsamba lang na napunta ako sa practice na to. Kasi gusto ko talaga heritage, but lumalabas mas more on the liturgical practice ako. So yun, my tip on the future architects din, try nyo lang po mag-ibang path. Lagi ko rin ito sinasabi sa mga lectures ko, hindi po lahat sa atin magiging architect, hindi po sa atin lahat magiging designers or contractor or a builder. Baka naman try natin or magiging professor in architecture or in other urban planning, hospital planning. Try nyo in church architecture. Well, of course, it's very challenging, but kung faithful ka naman, kung ino-offer mo everyday this with God, I think makaka-survive ka in this path, in this specialization in church architecture. Of course, I will promote the UST College of Graduate School in Heritage. I think sila lang talaga din yung nagkakaroon ng convention about churches heritage. So nagkakaroon ng networks within the parishes, within the priests, within the bishops and priests. I think kung gusto mo rin talaga mag-practice ng church architecture, you need exposure also in the church or in the ecclesiastical government also. So yun, I think that's my last tip for the future church architects or church designers.
Thank you so much for that. Maybe we can hear something from Father Ricky. Father, nandiyan ba po kayo? Father
Ricky, volunteers daw sa museum.
Yes, we need lots of volunteers.
Yes.
Architecture student para po sa documentation ng aming ceiling dahil yun ang next in line project namin ni Architect Roy. Dahil po sa nangyayari sa atin ngayon, nandiyan na ang global warming, talagang epektado po ang vaulted ceiling ng San Agustin. Almost every day may nalalaglag na powder. Halos araw-araw. At kung titingin kayo sa ceiling ng San Agustin, masasabi natin na in some part, talagang nasa advanced deteriorated na ang Trompe l'oeil painting, lalo na yung highest area, yung sa may dome, halos din na naka-expose na yung adobe. So bago pa man ito mabura, sana po ma-document natin lahat. Hindi, medyo very challenging yung trabaho. Hindi namin to kaya na walang volunteer. Kaya po, ayan, actually si Architect Roy ang gagawa niyan.
Pahingin ng funds.
I hope meron po
IA.
para ma-document po ito. Para pagdating po sa conservation and restoration na gagawin natin, kumpleto po tayo ng mga documents. Meron po tayong references kung paano natin ito maibabalik. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din, Father Ricky, and maraming salamat, dear speaker. Now, before I close this Zoom webinar, I'd like to promote our social media pages. So the Intramuros Administration is available in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And for those who came in late, or for those who missed this episode, do not worry, because this episode is recorded and is available siguro mga bukas. So it's going to be available in our YouTube channel. Just key in Intramuros Administration, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And also, as what I've mentioned earlier, the Pin collection of the Intramuros Administration, which holds the never before seen photographs of life in Intramuros during the colonial period. So these have been digitized and is available now for viewing at the Google Arts and Culture page of the Intramuros Administration. Just key in Intramuros Administration. And of course, featured din po sa aming Google Arts and Culture page yung mga digitized na mga artifacts, mga museum artifacts. So a lot of our artifacts have also been digitized as well. And then, so good news po, so Intramuros is again nominated as Asia's leading tourist attraction for 2021. So feel free to vote again para manalo ulit kami this year. Kasi nanalo tayo kasi Intramuros is for all of us. So nanalo tayo last year, 2020, and hopefully manalo ulit tayo this year, 2021. So just go to the website, worldtravelawards.com, register, and vote. The deadline is on August 16, 2021. And of course, I'd like to promote our webinar tomorrow. We're going to have the Executive Director of the National Archives of the Philippines, the Honorable Victorino Mapa Manalo, who's going to talk about the Bolhoon Church, from records to retablo. So similar to the talk today, another topic on ecclesiastical heritage tomorrow, June 12 at 3 p.m. So the details are in our Facebook page at the Intramuros Administration. And next week is another talk. So we're going to feature naman the Colegio de San Juan de Letran by Francisco R. Leongson IV. So this is on June 18 at 3 p.m. So we're going to talk about the legacies as well as the heritage and significance of the Colegio to Philippine history and nationalism. And then for our last talk for this month, June 26, so on June 26, 3 p.m., we're also going to talk about 3D models. So the importance of 3D models in the reconstruction of historic fabrics. So pamanahon, digitally reconstructing pre-war Intramuros together with Prince Guido from UST College of Architecture. So that's it for today. Architect Roy, meron ka pang gusto sabihin?
Okay na po. Thank you so much thank you so much, Intramuros Administration, for allowing me to use the Umping photograph collection of 1919, the very first ever featured here online. Ayun po. Thank you so much, IA.
Thank you so much din po. Maraming salamat sa lahat. And see you po sa mga succeeding webinars. And Architect Roy, maybe we can have another webinar related to something to this, no? Looking forward, maybe next month or the following month.
Another feast. Another feast of a saint.
Yeah. So it's always sinasabi nila na Intramuros is like always gas-gas na topic. But there's so much to Intramuros that we don't yet know. And it's a matter of rediscovering and repackaging data in such a way that it becomes refreshing over and over again, despite na paulit-ulit na siya. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Architect. Thank you, Father Ricky. Maraming salamat and see you in our next Intramuros Learning Sessions episode. Mabuhay po lahat.